Peace, family. It's your brother, Marc Lamont Hill. Welcome to the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Today is Israel's war on Gaza day number 118. I want to say that again. Today is 118 days marked in of Israel's ongoing war on the Gaza Strip and the Palestinian people. And we're going to keep covering it every single day on the channel because every single day there are new developments. Every single day there are analyses and developments and movements and policies and decisions that are being made that mainstream media simply isn't covering. So we're going to cover all of it today. I want y'all to drop in your city, your state, your country, drop in your location. Let me know where you're writing in from because I love to shout out people who are part of the channel, people who are subscribers, people who are members. Yep, Darnell Bolton, who's a member of the channel. You got me live right now. Claudia, shout out to you too. Let me know where y'all writing in from. Let me know where y'all coming in from. We're about to get started with the latest developments in Israel's war on Gaza, but I wanted to shout y'all out and get some names and some locations. I see Abdullah writing all the way in from Somalia. Thank you so much. We got some Somalia coverage coming up too. Michaela Carr writes in from Arkansas. Cody, thank you so much for shouting me out. I see Rico BK21 live from Brooklyn. Rico, thanks for being a member of the MLH channel. Michelle N. Wash is a member of the channel also from Denver. I appreciate you. I appreciate you writing in. Killer Cali, what's up? What's up, nephew? Sam Dub. We got Jeffrey Bowers out in Wilmington. And we got Basil Tiffany, who is a member of the channel. Shout you out. Love you. Appreciate you always. Thank you for being here and doing what you do. Claire out in ATL, Dominique Pierce out here. I'm gonna shout out one more person, two more people here. I see Rosability in Oaktown. Gotta show you love. You a member of the channel. CH, same thing. Appreciate y'all. Joseph Halevi from Sydney, Australia. Thanks for writing in. As y'all can see, people are writing in from all over, including CH from LA. And of course, Tony Roberts from the Bronx. So I appreciate y'all for being a part of the channel, for doing what we do here. And I wish that we could have different news than the news we have to do every single day, which is the update from Palestine, and more specifically from Gaza. As of now, according to the Ministry of Health, more than 27,000 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza since October 7th. 27,000. This is a stunning number. One that should be unimaginable. Also, more than 66,139 Gazans or Palestinians more broadly have been injured since October 7th. So we're talking about more than 27,000 killed, more than 66,000 injured, and a large proportion of those people are women and children. 2/3, in fact, are women and children. Every hour, two mothers, not just women, two mothers are killed in Gaza. This is our reality on day 118. Anyway, let me give you some more. I don't want to just give you death numbers. I want to give you some more specifics. The Israeli army yesterday stormed the courtyard of El Amal Hospital, which is affiliated with the PRCS, the Palestinian Red Crescent Society, in the city of Khan Yunis, which is in the southern part of the Gaza Strip. They've been a 10-day siege, and now they stormed the hospital, which is not a surprise, but also nonetheless dangerous. And it's not just Al Amal Hospital in Khan Yunis. Khan Yunis has multiple hospitals. Another hospital in Khan Yunis is Nasser, the Nasser Hospital. And the Nasser Hospital has been sieged for days now as well. And it's also very vulnerable. And the reason why these are so noteworthy is because when a hospital is bombarded like this, when it's under siege like this, more specifically, what happens is not only are they vulnerable to the actual weapons, the gunfire, the bombs, whatever, but also the people in the hospital can't leave. They can't be transferred to get other medical staff, other medical treatment, etc. And people on the outside cannot get in. So if the hospital is bombarded, then what do you do when you need a blood transfusion? What do you do when you have a baby? I mean, we're talking about October, so people are likely not getting pregnant as much between October and February now, which, by the way, is another marker of genocide if you're doing things to deliberately decrease the births in an area. But beyond that, There are people who are already pregnant on October 7th or near October 7th, and now they can't get in. We have babies being born premature. We have people dying more than they need to at birth. The maternal morbidity rate or mortality rate is extremely high. So the hospitals being sieged is ugly and bad on its own, but it also has these unintended or unexpected residual consequences as well. The bombardment in Gaza more broadly continues. Al Jazeera's Tariq Abu Azum reported that several Palestinians were killed after Israel bombed a civilian car on the main road that links Khan Yunis and Rafah. On Thursday, the U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, released a statement saying U.S. forces conducted strikes against Houthi unarmed aerial vehicles and the group's ground control station in self-defense. Late on Wednesday, CENTCOM announced that the USS Carney shot down an anti-ship ballistic missile that was fired by Houthis in the Gulf of Aden or Aden. No damages or injuries were reported. The reason why this is noteworthy for me, in fact, let me tell you one more story in the Red Sea, and then I'll connect it for you. The European Union plans to launch a naval mission in the Red Sea within 3 weeks to help defend cargo ships against Houthi attacks. EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell said on Wednesday. The reason why this is so important, first of all, what we're seeing is the U.S. continue to wage war on the Red Sea, wage war on Houthis. Let me not say wage war because I want to be sort of legally and analytically specific, but what they are doing is engaging in acts of aggression against Houthis in response to Houthis' acts of aggression, including blockades and attacks on ships in the Red Sea. The fact that we see missile intercepts, we see anti-ballistic missiles, anti-ship ballistic missiles fired, and the reason because we see defense technology used so intensely in the Red Sea right now, and offensive technology at the same time that the Houthis are maintaining their commitment to the blockade. At the same time that many multinational corporations are saying they're going to take a more circuitous route to deliver their goods, their cargo, i.e., they're not going to take the Red Sea, which is very costly to take the detour. All of that happening means that the Red Sea is going to continue to be a hotbed until we see a change in policy. For the Houthis, a change in policy is, of course, a ceasefire. And for the West, it is the Houthis stopping. There are many talks going on right now, and there's a chance that we'll see a ceasefire very soon. And so hopefully this addresses itself. But if it doesn't, what you're going to see, unfortunately, is a continued doubling down by the U.S., and you're going to continue to see the Houthis also digging in their heels. And that creates the space and the context and the pretext or the excuse for a proxy war. So the Houthis, they're going to say, oh, well, Iran is supporting the Houthis. It's not, this isn't just a Yemen thing, this is an Iran thing. Hezbollah is being supportive of troops in the northern part of Israel, the southern part of Lebanon. Hamas is being trained in funneled weapons by Iran. And so suddenly Iran becomes this boogeyman. And then we're going to say, well, what's China's role in relation to them? And what's Russia's role in relation to them? And what's the US's role in relation to Israel? And suddenly we have this multinational global struggle going on that was in the Gaza Strip and really in the southern part of the Gaza Strip at one point, or the northern part of the Gaza Strip, excuse me. And now it's throughout the Gaza Strip. It's also in the West Bank, which we'll talk about in a moment. It's also in the Red Sea. It's also in Lebanon. It's also in Syria, as we saw the strikes last week. So what could be ended with a ceasefire and a reasonable diplomatic political solution is turning into a full-scale regional conflict, and that is not okay. About 184,000 people have registered for humanitarian assistance on the western outskirts of Khan Yunis in recent days. That's according to the OCHA. Again, why is that important? That's OCHA is the United Nations Humanitarian Agency. Again, we're seeing more displacement. We already got 1.7 million people displaced, but more displacement. We're seeing near famine levels. A famine is close. There's some disagreement about that, some denial about that. But we saw similar denial in Somalia last year when I remember pressuring the president of Somalia around this issue, and he gave me a similar response. But I say all that to say the growing amount of humanitarian need is stunning and telling, and something has to happen sooner than later. A civil case is emerging, accusing U.S. President Joe Biden and other senior officials of being complicit in Israel's genocide in Gaza. Sadly, it's been dismissed by a U.S. federal court judge, not on the merits. I want to be very clear. The civil case brought against the United States for complicity was dismissed by a federal judge in the United States for jurisdictional grounds. In other words, the U.S. federal court system is saying it's not up to us to charge them. But you know who is? The ICJ. You know who else is? The ICC. The international courts will be the deciders. And I think you just might see the United States brought to charges because they are they're vetoing measures on the UN Security Council. They are supplying the weapons, they're supplying the defense, they're supplying the money, they're giving political cover. I mean, what else do you need to be complicit? And even helping cut UNRWA funds is another piece of this that we'll talk about later. I will do a whole other session on that, and we did already. Check the channel, but it's a very interesting thing that we're beginning to see. Anyway, just wanted to bring that up. Hit the like button if y'all feel what I'm talking about. Hit the like button if you feel what I'm talking about. If you understand what I'm talking about. All right, family. South Africa's Foreign Minister Naledi Pandor said on Wednesday that Israel has ignored the interim ruling by the ICJ last week by killing hundreds more civilians in a matter of days in Gaza. This is not surprising. Israel has effectively said, screw the ICJ. We saw the Minister of Defense in Israel say, hey, Schmeig. I'm talking about Ben-Gvir. Israel effectively said we've done nothing wrong, and so all the provisions and all of the demands made by the ICJ are what we're already doing, so we're not going to do anything different. That's incredibly unfortunate, but not surprising. And so I think, the ICJ or the ICC or any other international body, any other multilateral organization is going to only be as good. It's only going to be as powerful as the will of the global community is to enforce it. So it'll be interesting to see what's happening. All the evidence is to the contrary, right? Like all the evidence is the Western nations, whether it's Canada, whether it's Germany, whether it's the United States, whatever, France, UK, they're using their energy to cut UNRWA funds and make a case for that, not to make it a case to enforce these provisional measures that the ICJ has asked of Israel. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met UN humanitarian coordinator Sigrid Kaag on Wednesday. Blinken said the U.S. government is, quote, working closely with Kaag to maximize aid getting into Gaza. I don't know what's true and what's not true with that, but I do know that at the very least, the ICJ decision seems to be creating space for there to be more humanitarian aid allowed in, and it seems that the Israeli government is at least creating space to allow those aid mechanisms to come in. Al Jazeera's Hamda Salhut reported, citing Israeli media, that Mossad spy chief David Bernia briefed Israel's war cabinet about the captives' release plan. Now, the captives' release plan is something interesting because the current plan suggests 35-day pause in fighting and the release of 35 captives. The number of Palestinian prisoners that will be released was not discussed. Yesterday, I talked about a potential three-phase plan, a three-phase strategy that begins with the release of the elderly and of non-combatant women, civilian women, and then soldiers, and then finally even the deceased bodies along with Palestinian prisoners will be released. It'll be interesting to see what those phases look like, how long they're going to last, and who will observe this so-called truce. But it's moving along, and I want y'all to know that. Ismail Haniyeh, who is the leader of Hamas right now, is expected to go to Egypt. He should be in Egypt right now. In fact, he landed in Cairo today to develop this truce proposal. It'll be interesting to see sort of how it develops. A couple quick notes before we go. There have been more attacks in the West Bank. And by the way, if you have questions, I see Bullet the Bunny has one. If other people have questions or comments, feel free to drop that super chat in. I will answer a couple of questions if you can. A Palestinian news agency, Wafa, reported that armed Israeli settlers injured 2 Palestinian children late Wednesday near the village of Susia, which is south of Khalil or Hebron in the West Bank. So we had 2 children injured. 2 grown Israeli settlers injured 2 West Bank children yesterday. Also from Wafa, armed Israeli settlers assaulted an elderly man in the Masafariata region, which is also in near Khalid, but it's I know it's south. It's actually what is? You know what? Don't get me the line. I've been to Masafariata multiple times. I'm trying to. I believe Masafariata is south of Khalid as well. It's not far from Susia. But either way, Israeli settlers beat up an old elderly man in Masafariata. This is settler violence, and of course, the Biden administration has talked about an executive order, among other things, designed to create penalties for Israeli settlers who are harming Palestinians. I think the bigger issue here is the illegal settlements, not these individual acts of violence, but I think all of it needs to be dealt with. We also saw yesterday an Israeli settler run over a herd of sheep, an entire herd of sheep in El Marajat area, which is west of Jericho. They were run over by a settler. So settler violence is becoming increasingly wide, increasingly indiscriminate, increasingly frustrating for folk. And so while we put most of our attention, and rightfully so, on what's happening in Gaza, we must also pay careful attention to what's happening in the West Bank, because everyone's paying a price for this. It's the right question, Joyce Gonzalez. I don't know the answer to it. I don't know what to say. Stephanie Marquez says, are we really supposed to be placated by measly sanctions on only 4 settlers? Unfortunately, that seems to be the move. That seems to be the expectation, that you can throw a few diplomatic or even juridical bones out there and that'll be that. But we're not going to allow for that to happen. We got a question coming in from Bullet the Bunny. Reading Except for Palestine Now. Thank you. For those who don't know, Except for Palestine is a book that I co-authored with Mitchell Plitnick. It's called Except for Palestine, The Limits of Progressive Politics. I hope you check it out when you get a chance. Did y'all expect something like this was like what has been happening since 10/7 generally? I mean, was this inevitable? Yeah, it was. I did not expect to see the scale of violence that we saw on 10/7, the scope of it. Partly, as we talk about in the book, in the chapter 4, the Gaza chapter, I wasn't sure that Hamas had the military or had the kind of tactical and weapons technology and resources that allowed for such an attack, such a wide scale attack to happen. That was a big part of it. I just didn't think that they could pull it off. I don't think Israel thought they could pull it off. Hell, I don't think Hamas thought they could pull it off. I think when they breached that so-called border, and I say so-called just because Israel's borders are still undefined technically. But when they approached that border, I think they were like, "Oh my God, we're in." Oh, I don't think they expected an operation of this scale either. But I would have thought not that 1,100 plus people would be killed in Israel, but I did think that we would see an extraordinary act of violence. I thought that we would see a spectacle of violence. Why? Well, because Gaza has been under siege. Gaza has been blockaded. Gaza has been under attack. They say that Gaza will be uninhabitable by 2020, and now we're in 2024, and the conditions um, are worse. It's beyond uninhabitable. When we look at the employment numbers, on top of the uninhabitability, which is marked through the lack of potable water, the lack of environmental safety, the lack of freedom. It's an open air prison, and then it's compounded by the fact that people don't have food, clothing, and shelter. Compounded by the fact that people don't have access to jobs. Compounded by the fact that there's extraordinary pressures placed upon the people there. When you add all that together, um, when you add all that together, and then you look at the fact that Israel continues to sort of overdetermine the outcomes and the destiny and the life chances of Palestinian people, because while it's popular and cool to say that Israel left in 2005, at the end of 2005 or the beginning of 2006, they didn't leave the Gaza Strip. They simply redeployed their troops to the borders, and so Israel continues to control, occupy, even effectively occupy and effectively control the Gaza Strip by land, by air, by sea. It continues to control the electromagnetic sphere and the population registry and food intake. And even at the Rafah border, you're still looking at a security coordination. So there has not been a moment of truly free or self-determined life in the Gaza Strip. And so when you see all of that, you would not be surprised. As Malcolm X talked about, the powder keg, you got a powder keg in the room. At some point, the powder keg is going to explode. And if the powder keg is near the house, the whole house is going to explode. This is what we saw. You can agree with the analysis. You can disagree with the analysis. You can disagree with the reason or the cause. You can disagree or have moral debates and tactical legal debates about what happened on October 7th. But at the end of the day, even if you think that what happened on October 7th was a gross atrocity, even if you think it was a moral transgression, if you think it was an act of a war crime. And let me be clear, I happen to think all of those things. I actually think October 7th was a war crime. I think Hamas created a situation where their resistance was actually a war crime. Killing children, killing innocent people, killing non-combatants is a violation of international law. So it's a violation of Islamic law. So I happen to believe that. But regardless of how you feel about it, at the end of the day, it's unimaginable that people will live under those terms and not at some point resist. And it's not as if Palestinians made that plan A or plan B or plan C, but Israel's continued to ignore them. The Palestinians have continued to march and struggle and protest. And it's not like it's all violent resistance here. I mean, look at the Great March of Return, where Palestinians were marching non-violently and got shot down like birds by Israeli forces. I mean, at the end of the day, to answer your question, yeah, we could see this coming. It was unavoidable, and stunning, in fact. All right, Darnell Bolton says, are all U.S. presidential candidates pro-Israel attack? Why is this topic absent in presidential debates? I think part of why it's absent in presidential debates is because there's no debate. Presidential candidates debate things that they disagree on. The debates haven't been among Democrats because there's only one Democrat that people are paying attention to. Even when Biden isn't on the ballot, they're ignoring his opponent. And so it's the Republican primary that we've been really looking at, in between Trump, who doesn't show up, and Nikki Haley, who's been very clear on her position, and Christie, and Tim Scott is just Trump light, and Ramaswamy is more of an isolationist. But at the end of the day, he still supports Israel. It is impossible to get the Republican nomination and not be a staunch supporter of Israel. It's impossible to get the Democratic nomination and not be a staunch supporter of Israel. How you support Israel, what that looks like, why you support Israel, all that stuff might be up for conversation, but not the do you support Israel part. And so, no, that there's no need for it to be present in the presidential debate because there's nothing to debate. But Are they all pro-Israel attack? I think there are some people. No, I think they all would say that. Now, there are some people who may debate what the U.S.'s role should be, and that comes again down to whether it's an isolationist and interventionist, etc. philosophy. But for sure, they're all going to say Israel was attacked on October 7th, and therefore Israel has a right to defend itself, and we shouldn't take away a sovereign nation's right to defend itself. The problem with that logic, the problem with that dialogue, the problem with that discourse is that it presumes that history started on October 7th. It presumes that the Palestinian people and the Israelis were sitting there on October 6th, and life was normal, and then the Palestinians just started bombing. When the truth is, October 6th was a day of violence. October 5th was a day of violence. Every day has been a day of violence for Palestinians in the region. And all of those things don't justify war crimes, but they do justify a closer reading of the situation and an understanding of history, which many people don't have as they talk about this issue. Joseph Oberlander, thank you so much for dropping this in. I like the live with Joseph Cohen. Yes, Joseph Cohen. Yeah, we had a spirited debate. If you missed our debate, I debated Joseph Cohen. He is a staunch Israeli advocate. He calls himself an ultra-Zionist. If you want to see his response to my questions or my pushbacks and vice versa, check out our debate on the Marc Lamont Hill official channels there. Don't cost you nothing, just check it out. You should check out Professor Ron Stockton After Class, who's quite balanced and preoccupied podcast, as well as Peter Beinart and Jewish Currents. Of course, Peter Beinart's a dear friend, and I wrote I'm part of a piece published in Jewish Currents right now. Maybe last month it came out, actually, on Baldwin and the question of Israel and anti-Semitism. So you should check it out. But yeah, I know Peter quite well. We were colleagues at CNN. We were friends. We're colleagues at CUNY now. He's a good guy. So shout out to Peter Beinart as well. Appreciate y'all, man. Sincerely, y'all have no idea how much I love and appreciate y'all. I want to thank everybody for watching this episode today. It's been great catching up with y'all. If you got other questions or comments, you want to drop one in, you can. Otherwise, I'm going to tell everybody, make sure you check out all the content on the page. Check out the 5 myths about Israel-Palestine. I think it's an important video for you to watch. Check out the latest videos. We got one coming up soon. In fact, I'm going to do another live tonight about the question of whether or not Israel has committed war crimes by dressing up as doctors in the hospital and executing Palestinians who are getting medical treatment. Is this a violation of international law? That's a question we're going to ask. That's a question I'm going to answer. In the meantime, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, come on, y'all, subscribe, family. Also, hit the join button. When you hit the join button, it allows you to become a monthly supporter of the channel. It allows us to build something super dope here, man. And that's what we're trying to do. I appreciate the super sticker Rico BK21. Shout out to my peoples in Brooklyn. Nam, love y'all. Appreciate y'all. Feel free to drop one of those in. Or if you don't want to do it that way, I missed the question. In that way, if you don't want to do it that way, then all you got to do is go straight to the Cash App, $MLHTV. Again, go to Cash App and do $MLHTV, and you can drop something directly into our piggy banks, which allows us to get more editors, to build more technology, to grow that studio that we're building, to create more podcasts on the channel, and do other things that expand the reach of this channel for radical political engagement, for critical thought, and for alternative narratives to mainstream political media and mainstream corporate media. That's what we're doing out here. I appreciate y'all. Love y'all, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.